Welcome everybody to Brothers Talk. It's a podcast for men, for brothers like myself, my guests here. We talk about men's issues. For brothers, when I say brothers, I mean brothers of all nationalities, diversities, whatever, all colors. We're all brothers. And we all have men's issues today. So I bring on a guest every now and then to talk about men's issues because we all go through them today. So today's episode is gonna be a little different. We're gonna go by generation now because I'm 54 years old. My guest here, which I'm gonna introduce in a minute, is 72 years old. So he's seen a lot of men's issues throughout the years and probably been through a couple of them himself. But I want to know, when I first saw him on a podcast, a brand new podcast called Unapologetically D. I was drawn to him, his speech, his tone, and I knew that he'd be a perfect person to bring on Brothers talk about men's issues today. First and foremost, 34 years protecting and serving in the fire service department as a firefighter. He was actually the first Black firefighter in the city of Renton, Washington. No, he retired as a lieutenant. He is a man of faith. And also his story is amazing, which I'm going to post it in the notes below. It's on D's podcast, Unapologetically D. You guys see all 3 episodes. You're going to love this. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Brothers Talk, Mr. Johnny Bell. Mr. Bell, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Lou. Thank you for such a nice introduction. Doing well.
Yes, I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, go on there. It's down below. This gentleman, it was amazing how he was talking. They had a good father-daughter conversation. You will love that right there. Mr. Bell, Brothers Talk today. I had to bring you on today. You're married 72 years on this earth. And you
Yes.
probably experienced and had many men's issues out there. You probably seen many men's issues out there. So,
Yes.
what we're going to start off today, I want to start off with something that a lot of men have an issue with. I don't know if you had this issue or not. Getting your blood work. And that's a real big issue today. I can tell you for me, I did not take it seriously at all until I got 50.
Mhm.
I was like, and I want to let the audience know, men in their 60s and 70s, they said you should get your blood work done like twice a year. So, Mr. Bell, I'm gonna ask you this first question here. How has it changed for you from your 20s to now in your 70s by getting your blood work done? And how important that is? How it was important for you coming up throughout when you was growing up to now? And how do you see other men doing it now?
So when you're talking about blood work, you're talking about. I mean, that's your life.
Yes.
Your blood is your life. And when I was growing up, I used to go to the doctor. I get physicals and stuff like that. But what really made it a little bit more serious for me is the career that I entered into at the age of 21.
Okay.
And this was required. It wasn't an option. You had to get regular physicals. Not as many when you were in, like I was in my 20s, but as I start to age, like you were just mentioning, we should get a little bit more regular, just to find out what's going on. Maybe nothing's going on, but and I always tell people you shouldn't be afraid to get a physical. You shouldn't be afraid to get checked out. It's just making you aware of things that you can't see. You can't see your blood. You can't see what's going on inside your body,
Mhm.
and I've been involved in physical fitness for most of my life. I grew up playing sports as a kid and very active, but that doesn't always guarantee you that you're in good health.
True.
Your physical, mental, and I even add spiritual health are really important. Okay,
Mhm.
in order for you to actually function in the world that we're in. Okay.
Wow.
So it became just an habitual thing for me. Matter of fact, as we think about it, I need to go get one now, because I'm right, I'm 72. And my wife says, well, did you get your physical yet? I said, I'm going, and she says, well, Johnny, you need to. And so that's something that, I got on my plan here, not too long in distant future. But it's so important that we don't take that for granted. And Lou, you've probably seen young people, and I being in being in the fire service and being as an emergency medical technician and being in the healthcare field, something that's still near and dear to my heart that I share with people. But I also got to make sure I'm making it happening for me,
Yes,
right? So I don't want to talk about something basically that I'm not incorporating in my own life,
absolutely.
right? It's easy to say, do this and do that, but am I doing it? Okay. Or if I'm saying it, am I planning on doing it? So, as you look through the generations and, like I see a lot of young men um, go through life and they just, I'm fine. I feel okay. Yeah, but you still need to just get checked out to find out something is developing that you may not be aware of. And the best way they do that is take blood draws. They do other things to, find out, if there's something going on. Because the earlier you find out about it, the better,
Oh,
right? Rather than later.
Mr. Bell,
Uh,
let me tell you something. I'm gonna
yes,
cut
sir.
you off. I know so many people that the number one reason they say, "Oh, I don't want. I'm scared of the results."
Yeah.
I can tell you when I think 30, my 30s and 40s, I was scared of results. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, well, I don't want to go through this. And now recently I'm meeting a lot of men that's having a lot of issues because they don't want to go because they're afraid of
Right.
the results. And
Right.
I'm 54. I know at least 8 men that are in their 50s that
Hmm.
still don't want to go. Like, have
Right.
you come across throughout your travels of men who gives the same excuses as well?
Oh, yeah. And like you just said, it's like, I don't want to go. But see, not going and not knowing doesn't change anything.
Yes.
So I'm no different than anybody else. I don't want negative news. I don't want to, but if not knowing is not going to change it. And so a lot of times what fear does is it keeps you from doing something that you should do. Okay.
Fear,
It
fear.
stops you in your tracks. And I get it. I get it. Fear is it's a real thing. And I perfectly, when people said I'm afraid, I says, I understand. There are things that I'm afraid of too, but at the same time, I've got to think, okay, is that going to change anything, me being afraid?
Mhm.
That's not going to change anything. So, but I understand that aspect of it. I really do honestly get that because I know fear is a real thing, because I grew up with it. Maybe we'll get down that in a little bit, but I grew up with fear and I can tell you why a little bit later on. That didn't have to do with my physical fitness, but it had to do with other things in my life. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, sir. I can tell you right now. This next part it's a little bit different. I don't know how you feel about it, but I wanted your opinion on this. Why are some changes you've seen? Like, and I'm sorry, what are some of the changes you've seen with men overall from your 20s to now?
Now, are you speaking of a specific group of men or just men in
Men
general?
in general.
Okay. And I guess you could say this could be, it doesn't matter whether you're black, white, or
Nope,
whatever.
everybody, men in general.
What I've seen is, and I could say as a whole, because a lot of men are doing good things and got good careers in that.
Yeah,
But what I've seen is what you may even understand, Lou, is that things have to start with us as men.
yeah,
We were created to be the leaders in our homes.
got
But what I see happening is you have men that are absent from the home.
it.
Okay. We call them absentee fathers. And you see that in our generation. And so people wonder why we got all this mess going on, why we got all this stuff going on. And I says, I'll give you, and I didn't, it's not like I came up with this, but I like to listen and listen to other people and what their thoughts are. But then I look at what's going on in our world today, and I say, the blame, and I'll get into the spiritual aspect maybe later on, but the blame is us, the men.
Yes,
We're absent. And so you grow up and you don't have any type of leader in your home. You have no type of direction in your home. Lou, I could have made all excuses of going a different path than I went because I didn't really have a father figure in my life growing up.
got it.
My dad died in the Korean War when I wasn't even born yet.
Wow.
I had uncles. I love them dearly, but they weren't an example from a family perspective that, I didn't see that. They were good. They used to take me and do things with me. So I remember that, but I didn't really see that structure. And so I had to learn this stuff, man,
Yeah.
and it took me a while, even after my wife and I got married and we had our kid. It took me a while. Maybe we'll get into that a little bit later on, but that's what I see. I just see there's an absence, of men leadership. And I'm talking about leadership that's leading our men in the right direction, helping them
Oh,
discover what their purpose is for life. Why am I here? What's my purpose? Why, you know, and some guys don't know their purpose. And so, they get caught up in all kinds of stuff, man, that leads them down a bad path. Matter of fact,
mm,
I'm in ministries, I started a prison ministry about 20 something years ago.
yeah.
And so reason why I did is I was like complaining, man, there's just so much crime, people doing this and that. And
Yeah.
and then, God just spoke to me in my heart, says, why don't you do something about it? I says, well, I'm in the fire service. I'm not a police officer, but that was God wasn't talking about that. He was saying, you need to go to a place and help these men that have already incarcerated themselves, and
Mm.
speak into their lives.
Wow.
Because a lot of these men made bad choices. Yeah, we all have to give account for our own choices, but a lot of them make it because they didn't know what else to do. They had no mentor. They had nobody to speak into their life to challenge them. And so you see this happening, in our country, of course, but in certain places more specifically. And so that's what I see. I mean, that's what I see that's missing.
So that goes into my next question there. Um, yeah, I wrote this down, but you know what? I'm going to speak it the way I'm going to speak it. Because you mentioned something that's very key for a lot of men, especially fathers. You're a father yourself of two daughters.
Mhm.
I'm a father myself of four, even though one's not here, but I'm still a father to four.
Yeah,
Fatherhood, being a father, uh, that's a tough deal. Like you said yourself, right? Your father was gone, right, in the
mhm,
Korean War before you was born, right? And
yeah.
you had other uncles and stuff like this and that. Like, how did you learn, or did you go through the fire? How did you learn how to be a father? Because being a father it is not easy. Because I grew up, I didn't have a father.
Yeah,
I didn't meet my father till I was 21. I mean,
yeah.
my father left when I guess I was seed. And I
Mhm.
didn't meet him till I was 21. I had my first child at a younger age. I didn't know what to do. It took
Yeah.
me forever to figure out fatherhood.
Mhm.
Like, so tell me something like, how'd you figure out? Because like, your father wasn't here. Do you have any guidance? Did you go to other men out in your life or friends or family in the neighborhood? Like, how'd you navigate that to being a father?
That's such a really, really good question. I guess it's a combination of things, I kind of knew some things, because like I had my mom for 10 years before she died.
Okay.
And my mom, I knew she loved me. I knew she
Mhm.
cared for me. Me and my sister, I had one sister 6 years older than I am. And she had a couple of guys that were in her life. One guy I didn't really care for at all.
Mhm.
He wanted to spank me for everything. If I
Mhm.
did, he was a military guy. And, I love military, but he had that mindset. You need to say yes, sir, to me. If you say
Okay.
okay, I mean,
Wow.
boy, you better make. And I was petrified of this dude.
Really?
And my mom weren't married. It's just her boyfriend.
Yeah.
She had another guy before that who was really kind of mild mannered and very nice guy, So I didn't really, I didn't really see I know my mom loved me, she cared for me. I knew that. There was no question mark in my mind about that. But I
Yeah.
didn't really see the real, like a real family unit. So how did I know what to do as a father? And I'm kind of like
Yeah.
you. I mean, it was trial and error, when I got married and my kids came. I mean, I'm happy. My wife and I looked at each other and like, oh, we got a kid. That's what we said about my oldest one that does the podcast. She's my
Yeah.
oldest. And I'm like, okay, so I got to make sure that my kids get properly trained. So I grew up in church, but I didn't really like, going to church, but I learned some things from it.
Yeah.
And my mom used to take us there, and then when my mom died, my grandmother used to take us, and so I heard a lot of things, and I saw some family things, and so I never forgot that. And I said, I knew one thing, Lou, even though I wasn't really in a relationship with the Lord at that time, I knew that it was good. I knew the church was a good thing as far as,
Mhm.
helping to raise a family and stuff like that. So when our daughters were born, we started going to church more.
Yeah. Got it.
Now I'm going to church on my own. I'm not being
Oh,
forced to. I'm
okay.
going on my own.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so, we started doing things. We started getting around families, and I was starting to see, okay, this is what families like. And
Oh,
so we wanted to make sure our daughters were, going to church, and we just knew it was a good thing. All right, whether you had a relationship with God or not, we knew it was just always grew up that it was a good atmosphere.
yeah.
And so that's where I gleaned a lot from. Um, and so I knew that I had to be responsible. And I even told my wife, that she became my wife. I actually told her sister when I was 19, I said, I'm going to marry that woman, but I'm not going to marry her until I make sure I have a good job and that I
Wow.
can be a responsible father.
Wow.
Because I says, I'm not going to marry her.
Wow.
So long story short, started my career in January. I passed my 6 month probation, and around July. In August, we got married. And that's when my life started. And then 1 year later, our oldest daughter came, and then a little about 2.5, almost 3 years later, then our second daughter came. But during that time, I was learning what it meant to be a father. Now, again, I wasn't. It's the difference between going to church and having a relationship with God. I liked the church. I thought it was great. I
Yeah.
liked the Bible. I thought it was great, but I really wasn't committed. I was just doing it because it was helping me to be a father,
Wow.
right? And so that's a lot of, and then after, and then we can talk a little bit more later on, from my spiritual standpoint. But that really was what helped me. And my grandmother like made me go to church. Now, her and my grandfather, he never went to church,
Gotcha.
but they were together for many years. That was her second husband because her first husband died. I think he died before I was even born.
Wow.
So we used to call him Big Mama and Big Daddy. That's
Okay.
what the names we used to call him. And
Gotcha.
so he didn't really set an example for me. He wasn't like, he didn't like do bad things to me or anything like that.
Yeah.
But he wasn't really an example that I would look back on and say that's a lot where I gleaned, because he used to do things that like, Big Daddy, you don't need to be doing that, stuff like that.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
I would say most of my learning how to be a father in the early stages of my kids coming in was through that avenue.
Wow. Okay. So that definitely leads me to what I was going to say. I was going to save it, but since you opened the door, we go walk right through it. Um, how has faith been for you as a man,
Mhm,
and how you think faith is with men
mhm,
now?
mhm. Okay, faith for me, when I reflect on my life, Lou, it was, and I got these dates cemented in my head.
Good, break them out.
So I got married. I didn't even know a whole lot about what it meant to be married, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And even though my wife and I, because we got married young, 20 years old, and
Okay.
and had kids, and I say the good thing was that I had a good stable career going on. That was probably the biggest thing. But
Got it.
I got to a point in my life we were about, gosh, maybe about 3, 4, about almost 5 years into our marriage,
Yeah.
and I was not happy.
Got
I
it.
mean, we every marriage has its arguments and stuff, but I was like, I'm not happy. I'm empty.
Wow.
And I don't know what's going on.
Really?
And I might get emotional as we go through this stuff.
Okay.
And I said, what's going on? Why am I not happy? And then I start remembering what my grandmother used to say. And I remember I listened to your thing, you talk about your grandma that read the Bible. My grandma used to tell me when I was a kid growing up, you know, and I was going to church, and I didn't really want to go to Pentecostal church, and they're yelling and jumping and shouting and screaming, and I was going right along with it, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And when I became a teenager, when I was 16, I said, Grandma, I just don't really want to go to church. She says,
That was
okay.
me.
She says, okay, you don't have to go to church, but you're not going to go out there and do all that craziness either. And
Yeah.
she said, Johnny, I'm going to tell you something. And I remember she lived to be 103 years old.
Wow.
And, you know, so she's around for a while. And I'm not saying my grandma was perfect, but
Yeah.
grandmas, there's something unique about grandmas.
Mm-hmm.
There's something very unique about them. She
Yeah.
told me, she says, Johnny, she says, God got his hand on you. And she said, you're going to find out sooner or later, you can run from God, but there ain't nowhere for you to hide.
Hold on, Mr. Bell. Did we got the same grandmother or something? Because that's
I'm telling you,
exactly what she said to me.
there's something about grandmas. I'm telling you.
It's crazy.
That's right. I never think any of this stuff is coincidental. Trust me. I never do. I never do. I said, God, you have something big going on here. But she said to me, and there was a guy used to walk around in my neighborhood, and he packed his Bible. Every time I saw a dude coming, I'm like, oh boy, I better go the other direction because I know. He said, how you doing, young man? I don't remember specifically all the stuff he said, but he was
Yeah.
a guy that, you know, I knew he had God in his life, and because he's packing that Bible. And man, I'm like, why do I keep running this guy? So I see him
Wow.
come away, I'm going the other way. But then I said, you know what? I'm just gonna be nice, and I just remember small little details of it. But he said, "How you doing, young man? Just different things." And being just a young boy, not know I'm fine. I just want to have fun, man. I want to go slide down the hills and ride my. I want to just have fun. Have this
Yeah.
conversation. But this stuff came back to me. So my grandmother was talking about, you can't run from God. And Lou, I started my career. We bought a home. We were doing all this, and everything was going really well. My wife and I, we had our issues. And I'm still young and know half of anything.
Yeah.
And so I was laying in the bed one day, October 11th, 1980,
Okay.
5 years into my career. And I'm laying there and I'm just not happy. I'm like, what is going on? And
I
then I
heard this.
said,
Yeah.
then I remember my grandmother saying about God. I said, okay, I've done the church thing. I've even read the Bible. I said, but God, if you're real, you're gonna have to show me something. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you, I didn't see God, physically. I didn't hear anything audibly, but something inside of me just said, that's what I've been waiting for. And all of a
Mm.
sudden it was like, and I'll share, I can share with you. I didn't know at that time what was going on, but now I do know what was going on. I
Hmm.
was being changed on the inside in my spirit.
How old was you at this time, sir?
I was 28 years old. It was in 1980. So I was 27. Yeah,
27.
yeah, almost.
No, wait a minute. Off topic right quick. I'm gonna let you
Yeah,
get back to it.
yeah.
You was 27, right?
Hmm.
He called to you in some way. You reached out to you.
Hmm.
Do you feel in today's age that it can happen again for these young men today? Maybe I'm not phrasing the question right. Like,
Hmm.
do you see today's man
Hmm.
being involved more in the faith or less in the faith?
I see, I see less. I don't see as much, at least from my perspective. I don't see as much. I see less because I think as men, we feel like, as long as I got a good job, as long as I'm being a good citizen, as long as I'm not causing any problems, I should be okay. Well, Lou, I was doing all of that. I wasn't out carousing. I
Hmm.
wasn't out doing bad things. I wasn't trying to make life miserable for other people or any of that stuff. I mean, I thought I was doing I thought it was pretty good. Matter of fact, when I told people about what had happened with me, they said, Johnny, you've always kind of like, been a model citizen and all of that. I said, bro, but you guys don't get it, man. You don't understand where I'm coming from. And so a lot of them didn't get it, because I was right in the early stages of my career, and it was just like, man, this was some unique change that is happening inside of me. It wasn't like I was, I mean, if you watch, I was still doing the same things. It was just something that was a deeper hunger to really know God.
Yeah.
Because I read the Bible, but now I'm not just reading it, it's reading me.
Gotcha. I gotcha.
And so
I understand.
and I say that only because I think but you have to want that. Let me just put it this way.
Yeah.
It won't just happen. You have to want, and that's where I was for me. I was at a place where I had all the stuff. I had stuff.
Mhm.
I wasn't a millionaire or anything, but I was doing okay. I had a good job, a good career, nice home, car. I had all the things that you need to
Yeah.
live. I was doing fine physically, but mentally and spiritually, I was messed up, and I didn't really
Mm.
know it. Because when you can get caught up in, it's like a lot of these young men, and they go out and they get in drugs and gangs and stuff.
Yeah.
Why? Because they want community, right or
Hmm.
wrong or indifferent. They want to
Hmm.
be identified with
That
something.
is crazy. But Mr. Bell, let me ask you a
Yeah,
question. You
yeah,
said you was down. You wasn't
yeah.
happy. You said you
Right.
were like 23 at the
27.
time? 27.
Yeah.
You wasn't happy. And everybody's going through mental health now. Everybody's talking about mental health. And like
Yes.
that wasn't really recognized back
Mhm.
then. Well, they didn't
No.
have like a title for it, but it was
No.
out there.
Yeah.
Do you feel your faith got you past, I guess, the back in the day version of mental health?
Oh, when I reflect, I didn't know it at that time, but when I reflect back on it, I
Yes.
know it's the only thing that got me to where I am today. And so, and the reason why I say that, Lou, is because, when I started reading the Bible, now that I had a spiritual rebirth,
Yeah.
it started clicking now. Whereas I read it
Okay.
before, it really wasn't clicking. Because
Okay.
it even says in Romans, in the book of Romans, it says, be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Well, I couldn't really get my mind renewed to the Bible until my spirit was born again.
Got it.
Because I read it.
Got it.
I read it. And I'm like, okay, I kind of I get it. I see what you're saying. But then I started like, okay, now I know it's going to be a challenge for me because I've been thinking a certain way for a long time. And now, even though, you know, I know if I die, I'm going to go to heaven because I have a relationship with the Lord, but I still have to live on planet Earth.
Mhm.
So I got to start thinking differently than what we see from a world's perspective, how the world thinks. And I'm not saying everything that people say or think are wrong, because some of them are thinking God's way and don't realize they are.
Gotcha.
Okay. Does that make sense at all?
100%. Trust me.
Yeah. So I had this, okay, now, Johnny, when you start thinking this way, people are going to look at you strange, bro. And they did. When I started telling the guys in my department, they didn't know me for like 5, 6 years. And I'm saying, man, I'm different. Not
Wow.
not better than them. And see, that's the thing you always got to be careful of. Well, you think you're better than me? No, that wasn't even the issue. It was not me being better than you. It's about me being who God wants me to be. Right. And so I had to
See?
start thinking different. I had to start lining up my way of thinking with what God says, even though it would conflict with my old nature. Because I'm like, man, I'm not used to this.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
I had to shift. Okay. And that was by choice. God's not going to force me, even that's what I think people think, I always say the devil made me do it, or God. I know the devil didn't make you do nothing. God's not going to make you do nothing. You have to decide on what you're going to do. You have to make the decision and the choice. And you can't go past the way you think.
Mm.
As a person thinks in their heart, that's the direction they're going to go.
I can
Right, wrong,
understand
or
that.
indifferent. Right, wrong, or indifferent. That's the path you're going to take, because that's you thinking that way.
Okay.
And you can't go contrary to that. And so that was the major thing that, at that stage of my life where I had to start making these adjustments. But at the same time, Lou, I didn't want to make people think that I was better than them.
Hmm.
That was not the issue. I'm not better
Hmm.
than anybody, man. If it wasn't for God, I wouldn't even be here today.
You know, that's interesting. Like, what do you think about what's going on today with mental health? Because it's up and down. It's
Right.
different age groups that I've
Yeah.
researched.
Yeah.
It's big in the 30s in the last couple of years, but
Hmm.
this one got me, Mr. Bell.
Yes.
From 59 to 70, no, to 59 to 67, there has been a spike in mental health in men in the
Hmm.
last year.
Hmm.
I mean, like that, I'm trying to figure out, have you, now I understand you're a man of faith.
Right.
Have you been through any of that? Or have you heard of other people in that age group going through that?
Well, I'm not really privy to a lot of the stats, but
Yeah.
I do know one thing. It is a challenge.
Mhm.
It is a real challenge to think differently. See, okay, I always start. Okay, so guys, whether you want to accept it or not, you are a created person. God created
Yes.
you. Okay, He
Yes.
created you, right? And like right in the beginning, He says God created man. He breathed in Adam, and he became a life-giving spirit.
Mhm.
God, so he was born. He was born through God's breathing him. So God created us, Adam and Eve, and then God, we had to make choices, and we know the
Yes.
fall, all of that.
Mhm.
But now you got to start. You got to start making choices, and your choices are made by how you think.
Got it.
And so when people go contrary, I'm just going to put it out there like this: when you go contrary to the way God think,
Mhm.
it's easy for your mentality to go down.
Got it.
You start thinking crazy stuff. And I'm not saying you're going to go out and commit a lot of crimes, but you start thinking because God wants you to think a certain way because He's the one that gave you life. So He wants you to think His way. You can choose not to, even
Mhm.
when you commit your life to Him, because that's why I would look at the Bible as a eternal book. It's not just a book like a novel you read one time and say, I got it figured out.
Yeah.
You can read it 5 times, 10 times, 15 times, 20 times, and I guarantee you're going to get more out of it. So when
Mhm.
people say, "Oh man, I read that. I got that. I don't need that," I'm saying,
Okay.
be careful because that's not true.
Okay.
You now I'll give you an example. When Satan came to test Jesus in the wilderness, he used Bible scriptures to try to, but Jesus said, man shall not live by bread alone, but every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God. He said,
Yeah.
you be the son of God, throw yourself off this cliff. The angels will take care of it. And it does say the angels will protect us, but he said, you shouldn't tempt the Lord thy God.
Yeah.
So you can put God, it's like saying, I love God, God's my protect, and I go walk out in front of a truck. Well, you're going to probably die. Okay. Because you're putting God to the test.
Yeah.
Um, and Satan says, well, I'll give you this. Well, he's the God of this world, so he can make you rich, he can make you famous and all of that, but he doesn't tell you the end results. Because it says, what is a prosper man to gain the whole world and lose his own soul? And what is your soul? It's your mind, it's your emotions, and it's your will. Okay, so you talk about mentality. Your emotions, your
Bell.
soul is your mind, your emotions, and your will. Your
Mr.
will, you choose all of that. That's where a lot of it, Lou, I'm going to be honest with you. I believe that's where a lot of the mental health issues come from.
Really?
They don't address that, sir. They want to medicate you. They want to deal with symptoms and not deal with the root cause,
Wow.
right? And I'm telling you from my own personal experience. Yeah, I've had
Gotcha.
mental challenges. Like when I was laying in that bed that night, when I said, Lord, you know, I wasn't, I mean, I had the stuff. I mean, what's wrong, man? You got a good career. You good? No,
Yeah.
I'm not good. Matter of fact, I went to tell my pastor the next day. I said, last night something happened to me. But I said, I don't think God cares about me. I think, I'm like, the devil came in right away, said, no, that's not gonna work for you.
Wow.
And I told him, I said, Pastor, I says, last night, I made a decision to give my life to God. But then I felt like God doesn't, I made too many mistakes. He said, let me tell you something, young man. He said, don't be fooled by the devil's tactics. I don't know if he used those exact words, but
Okay.
don't be fooled. He said, if that was the case, you would not be here right now
Mhm.
sharing this with me. And I'm like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, what a lie that the devil is. He's a liar. And so that day forward, I never doubted my, salvation as far as going to heaven. But I
Yeah.
knew that there were things that I, had to do to become stronger as a believer to, because you can still be deceived no matter who you are. It doesn't matter who you are.
Tell me
You
about it,
can, if you say you can't, you already have been. So
sir.
yeah.
The,
So
the,
that's kind of the that's what I Lou, that's what I look at from that mental. People talk about, I'm in
yeah.
sports and they talk about me mentally tough. You can take it, right? And I know sports, I coach and I understand it. I get it. Yeah, you do have to be mentally tough. You can't let the size of the thing of your opponent get you down, right? And so I believe that's true because you know the story of David and Goliath and
Yeah.
all of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And so you can't let your eyes and your ears and your senses dictate to you that this is impossible, right?
Mm,
You can't.
mm.
And I'll say that not that I have it perfectly down, because the battle goes on for life. And
Wow.
so, the one thing I say, if you're already defeated in your mind, you're not going to accomplish much. And so you see a lot of our young people, like you're saying, at the age that they get to a certain age and they think they don't have anything that they can offer anymore. Well, that's
Yes.
that's not true. Matter of fact, you got a lot to offer. You just been lied to.
Mm,
You put
mm.
yourself in this position and now you've been lied to and you're believing a lie.
Mr.
You
Bell,
know?
Mr. Bell, Mr. Bell. I'm telling you. See, this is why I brought you on here. I'm serious, right? But you know what? I'm gonna ask you something new here.
Mhm.
What is your attitude or your thoughts about when you was coming up? You was a
Mhm.
firefighter for 34 years. Your work
Yeah.
ethic and
Yeah.
working with men compared to then and to
Mhm.
now
Mhm.
with work. Because I can tell you when I was coming up, my grandmother had me like on the kitchen floor, my hands and knees with the scrub brush and the whole
Yeah.
Ajax and scrubbing and this and that. And she used to make me wash my clothes. Or remember the old scrub boards? I'm up
Yes,
here,
sir. I
knocking out
do.
my knuckles
I
and
do. I remember those scrub boards.
she had the scrub boards and like she had a dryer, but she had the
Right.
old roll up one. Like you roll, you
Yeah.
the
Yes,
water out of it and you put it on the
yes, sir.
clothesline.
I remember all of that. I
Uh,
do.
and she
I
told
do.
me work ethic. Like you're not going to be a lazy. Well, now she used another word, but I'm
Yeah,
not
I
going to
know.
say
I
that.
know.
You
Hey,
know
if
what I'm
I tell
talking
you
about.
some of the things that my grandmother told me, you like,
Exactly. So what do you think about the work ethic with men when you was coming up
mhm.
compared to now?
Okay, so that's another really good question. So being that God has allowed me to see a lot of things, and the changes in the generation that I've been blessed to see,
Mhm.
you know, we were taught to work.
Oh,
Okay.
yes.
We didn't have a lot of the things that, young people have today.
Mhm.
I don't get me wrong, I'm thankful for technology and all of that. I'm thankful for all of that.
I'm
Uh,
not.
but
Sometimes I'm not.
well, that's what I'm saying. I'm thankful for it, but it's good and bad,
Yes.
you know. But when I was growing up, we didn't have all that. I mean, we had to put our hands to the plow. We had to work. We had to get down to the nitty
Mhm.
gritty.
Oh.
Get the shovel out. You didn't have those magic things that can dig holes for you and all of
Mm-mm.
that.
Mm-mm.
So I was taught just to, stick. And a lot of it came from my mom too. My
Yeah.
mom and my grandma. Even though I was 10 years old when she died, I learned a lot in those years prior to that.
Yeah.
Work, boy, clean that room up. The room ain't gonna clean itself up. You better, you know,
Yes.
you know
Yes.
what I'm saying, right?
Yes.
And
Oh
my
my
grandma said,
goodness.
boy, she said, If you don't get in there, I'll put my foot on your head and I will tear your booty up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, my
I'm not gonna
grandma
say it the
said
way
that
she
too,
said it,
but she said
but I
a
know what
couple
she
words.
meant. I knew
Yeah.
she wasn't gonna hurt me per se,
Hmm.
but she was just trying to train me.
Yeah.
And Lou, I think that's a lot what we see missing is that the training. Now, kids think they know everything now,
Mhm.
right? Because they get all this head knowledge, but they never got the training on, what is so important about work ethics. I remember when I decided to go into this fire service career,
Mhm.
and I had a friend of mine, we were both going to do it, and I said, man, we can't be late. We got to make sure we get there, because this is our golden opportunity. Well, long story short, he didn't get to my place on time, and I just took off, and I said, I'm not going to be late. And I got out there and I was able to get in, and that was the beginning of my career testing and all that we go down the road
Mhm.
with that. But I looked at that part and I said, it's work and responsibility. You got to be responsible. You got to take the opportunities when they present themselves because they may not come back. And so I look at a lot of things that my mom and my grandma were teaching me is about, be responsible, have good work ethics,
Yeah.
don't allow yourself to go down this path, And I was scared, man. And let me tell you something, I was
Mhm.
scared of drugs and stuff.
Yeah,
I
me
didn't.
too.
I was petrified. And it's like, all that and your mind's like, I didn't like my mind not being like gone. We talk about mental illness.
Mm-mm.
Sometimes we put ourselves in those situations because I want to have this good feeling. I said, no, I don't want to do that. I
Mm-mm.
don't do that. And so I
Mm-mm.
never really, well, I watched some of my friends get hooked up, and actually some of them are not even alive to this day, went down that path. But that was my choice because
Yeah.
I got that training,
Yeah.
and and that really helped me. That really helped me to make good decisions. Like I said, Lou, I'm not sitting here like I was perfect at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
I made my share of mistakes, but I'm thankful that I got some training, and it reminded me, Johnny, every decision you make is going to have some type of effect, negatively or positively. And I wanted to be an example, especially as a father, you know.
You know what? I'm glad you said that because I'm actually had two more things for you. I want to go
Uh,
back to fatherhood.
yeah.
Out of all the years, ups and downs, mistakes, because we've all made mistakes. There's no guideline or book to being a parent. Okay,
Mm,
especially a
no,
father, especially being
no.
a father. And
Yeah,
of course, you have two girls.
yeah.
I have two girls too. What do you look back like? What are you most proud of about raising your daughters today?
Well, I'm really proud of the fact that I didn't have to raise them by myself.
Yeah, but
Okay.
we're
But
contributing to it. There you go.
yeah. So my contributions, Lou, really came from when I started understanding what the Bible said about a father,
Got
you
it.
know. And there's one particular scripture I'm going to share with you here.
Okay.
I think I might have wrote it down here somewhere that really, yeah, I'm going to read this to you. This is what, because I've seen a lot of young kids that didn't have fathers, and one of the best things for a young lady growing up is having a good father in their life.
Yeah.
Because you know what they do. A lot of them, they'll look for someone like their father. You know,
Some
and so
do.
I look at my daughters. Now, that doesn't
So
mean they're going to be like me. I'm
yeah.
having my own personality.
Yeah.
But two things, Lou, that I expected from my son-in-laws. I'm not, if you talk to my daughter, I'm not a mean guy. I'm not gonna, man, you better treat I'm gonna do this. I'm not. That's not me.
Yeah.
But there's two things. I said two things. Don't verbally or physically abuse my daughters. You
Huh.
guys can argue about money. You can argue
Mm.
about kids. You can argue about this. Hey, I get it. Everybody goes through that. But those are the two things that would be a problem for me. That
You
would be.
said it nicely because I did not say it nicely to both my daughters. I'm not gonna say it here to you,
Yeah,
sir.
you're right. Right.
Like I know we're two different people,
Right.
but I was very verbal.
Yeah, I
and,
know. I
and
get it.
one time I had to get physical with one.
Yeah.
So, I'm
I
very
get it.
protective over my girls.
Yes, sir.
I
Yes, sir.
mean, you have to be. I know being a father, my sons, oh God, I should have been harder on them. That's what I should have been
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
these boys, man, I'm not gonna talk about that right there. Mr. Bell, I'm gonna end off with one last question. I actually wrote this one. I'm gonna read it off to you because I think this is the most important one, especially you got tons of divorces out there. You
Mm.
got a lot of men who are not getting married anymore. I know
Yes.
at least a million of guys are not doing it anymore.
Right.
I
Right.
am a two-time divorcee, but
Okay.
I know why I'm divorced.
Okay. Okay.
I knew I had to take accountability in both of those.
Okay.
That's a big thing
Okay.
for me, accountability.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna read this to you. 50 years of marriage,
Mhm.
ups and downs.
Yes, sir.
How do you as a man make it work? And what do you see how marriages are now, plus throughout the years? Like basically, like, you put in work 50 years.
Mm.
And like you said, it's been ups and downs with it.
Yeah.
And people can learn from you. I can learn from this answer coming up from you.
Mhm.
Because a lot of people don't want to do it anymore, and I know that when it's come out, when she sees it, because she's been hinting about getting married, my girlfriend now. So
Okay.
maybe you can help me out with that one.
Okay.
But break that down to everybody, 'cause that's a monumental thing.
Yeah. So let me start out by saying this. I have friends that have been married. One is actually on his third marriage right now.
Oh,
I had
yeah,
another one he's in his second marriage.
okay,
And so what I told those guys, I said, you know what? I said, this is it. This is the last one. Okay. You can't make someone stay married. God wants us to be married for a lifetime. That was always his intent. Till death
okay,
do you part. That's always been his intent. And
yeah,
yet, if you look at scripture, it does say if that person wants to leave, you can't stop them. If they want to leave, you can't make them. Okay.
really.
You
Oh,
can't stop them. If they don't want to be in that marriage, you don't have to, you can't make them stay in that marriage.
that was
Right.
written.
And I can actually send you a scripture on that. So
Yeah, send me that. I want to
it's
see that.
talking to the church,
Yeah, yeah,
right? Talking to the church. If they want to leave, right? You want to stay married, but they still have a free will. God, they still can make their own choice to leave the marriage, and you don't have to bind them to that. I'll, like I said, I'll send you the scripture passages on that. So what was going on in that situation?
okay.
Um, the other thing is Dot and I have been married we've known each other for, gosh, most of our life. We were like, practically, we were kids in middle school. We knew each other. And then we started dating. Of course, then we got married when we were early in our 20s. But
Mhm.
we went through our stuff. Trust me. We wouldn't, I'll tell you, Lou, we would not be together today if it hadn't been what had happened to me on October 11th, 1980. Because
Really?
I was just, and there's a lot of things that I can go back and
Yeah,
reflect on, and it certainly wasn't her. It wasn't
yeah,
all her. It wasn't all me,
yeah.
right? And I always say that divorce is never really one person's fault. But there is one thing that there's one word, however you want to look at it, that really is a major part of a divorce, and that one word is called selfishness. I want it my way. If you don't do it my way, then we're not going to have it anyway. And
That was me.
regardless of what brought it to that, that's really it. So when Dot and I got married, and and actually she committed her life to the Lord like a year after I did, because and I made some mistakes. Trust me, we're going to church, and that's the way it's going to be. But so when we got to that point in our marriage, and we already knew the vows.
Mhm,
Okay, we say the vows, but people just say the vows because that's just normal what you do in a wedding, right? You say
mhm.
vows. But now we look back on it, we say, now we're going to apply these vows. And things we said, and she said it, I said it, we will never, ever, no matter what goes on, no matter what happens, don't we might get angry and mad and we don't want to talk and all that. But there's one thing that will never happen in this relationship, and
Mm.
that's the D word, divorce. Not going to happen. And so
Mm.
we were saying that, Lou, Okay, we were saying that not that we would be challenged, you know, or anything like that, but we started thinking it's not about us. It wasn't just about us. We say we want to be an example
Mm.
to our kids and our kids' kids. Not perfect, but that's the biggest thing. And like I said, at the same time, if that person, if I wanted to walk out, if she wanted to walk out, she couldn't stop me and I couldn't stop her. But we made that agreement. Well, didn't you guys do vows? Yeah, everybody does vows. That's how you get married. But
Yeah,
not everybody keeps vows. Okay. We all do them, but we don't all keep them.
I didn't.
So,
I'm not gonna lie to you, sir. I did not do it. I was very bad at it. It was my fault for the first one.
mhm,
I took half ownership for the second one, but I get what you're saying. But I'm gonna let you finish. But let me ask you
yeah,
something. What do you say to men,
mhm,
or anybody in general, that's
yeah.
not big on faith? To
That's not big. That's not. And I'll say this: you may not be big on faith or walking with the Lord, but there is still right and wrong, right?
Mm,
And if you make a promise to do something, and you hear people that may not be big on faith, but like even in a job or something, you have to keep your word,
mm.
or you could lose your job. You have to be
True.
responsible, or you could lose your job.
Yes.
So, and see, people say, "Well, man, I'm not into religion." And that first thing I say, when you say you're not in religion, I says, "Neither am I," because I know what religion is. A lot of people don't know what religion is. They think religion is relating to God. Well, it's the complete opposite. If you look at the religious people in the Bible, they weren't relating to God. They thought they knew God, but they actually knew nothing. And Jesus would call them whitewashed tomb full of dead man's bones. And I don't know what that really means, but not something good.
Mhm.
Right? So I would just say, just generally speaking, just be, and we use the term be a good person. And that's not a bad thing to say.
Mm,
So what is a good person? A good person is a person who's honest, integrous, can say I'm sorry, can do these things. And even if you say I even have a relationship with God, those are still good things to do, right? Just
mm.
be a nice person. Say excuse me if you bump into someone. And look, like I said, I have my times. People, do stuff, and but
Yeah.
God reminds me, um, but that's what I would say. That's what I would say to a person say, well, man, I don't go to church, I don't read the Bible. And I said, but do you know right and wrong? We all get upset, and what you should do in certain situations. And but
I
yet we
try.
still, yeah, me too, Lou.
I
Trust me.
try.
I People say, well, man, you're a pastor and you do. I'm like, let me just tell you something.
Human.
I'm a pastor. I read and study the word of God, but I'm still human. I still have challenges. I still have to make decisions on
Mm,
whether I want to do it God's way or my way.
I
So
love it.
going to heaven is not that I did all these right things and I'm good, you know. And the Bible even tells us if it wasn't for Jesus, you would have no heaven because you could do everything right and do one
Mm.
wrong thing and you're eliminated.
Okay. You know what? Off topic. Who
Yes.
made the first move? You or your wife?
As far as relating to God.
No, just how you met.
Oh, how we met. Oh,
Yeah.
Lou, that's oh my
Who
gosh.
came on the who first? Did you come? Did you shoot your shot to her, or did she shoot your shot to you? Be careful what you say,
Okay,
Mister
so
Bell.
yeah. So this is an interesting question that you asked because my wife, my present wife, used to date my best friend.
Oh,
Okay, now wait a minute. So, but and I wasn't coming on to her at all. I mean, that was but they broke up, and it was over a year later that she came on to me.
I love it.
Okay,
I
but
love
she was only playing games with my head, Lou.
it. Ooh.
She was only playing. We were at a high school dance, and she was talking to me, and she says, "How would you like to be my boyfriend?" And I'm like, "Well, she's not dating my friend anymore, and he's with another girl, and all of that, and so I said, "Well, that was yeah, okay, let's try it." And she was joking. She was joking, Lou.
You know what?
You should have her on here. You should have her on your podcast one day and ask her about that.
Oh my
But
goodness.
she was joking. And so here's long story short. So she was joking. I said, "Oh, okay, fine, that's fine." And then it was not that long later, long time down the road, we were talking. I think it was another dance or something, and she said, "Oh, hi, Johnny, how you doing? I'm good." She says, "Are you with it?" I said, "No." She said, "Me either," or something like that. I says, "You know, you want to try this again?" I said, "Oh no, that is not happening, girl. That's not happening." I said, "I'm not doing that."
Mr.
She
Bell, I
said, "No,
love it.
I'm serious. I'm serious." I said, "No, I'm not doing it." She said, "Well, can we just talk?" So
Wow.
we got on the phone, we talked, and we started talking and stuff. And I was starting to see maybe she's serious.
Wow.
And she was. She was
Okay.
serious.
Okay.
So, we started going together. We get together off and on. We're still young and, don't know a whole lot of anything. Off and on. And then, um, we went on a trip. We were in our yeah we're in our yeah we're in 20. I was 21 and she was, I think I was 22, she's 21, something like that.
Yeah.
But we were on a trip. We went down to Reno, Nevada, and we weren't married yet. And so, I was having my fun, gambling a little bit, lost a little money, and so this is a good time to ask her to be my wife.
Wow.
So I bought this ring. Now I'm serious, right? I bought this ring, and so we were sitting there, we are talking, and I said, "Dot." I looked right at her. I said, "Will you marry me?" She looked at me like, "What?" I said, "No, I'm serious. Will you marry me?" And she said, "Yes." So we went to the courtroom. We got married, kind of like eloped. My grandmother wasn't happy. People weren't, but we later on we did our vows again. But that's how we
Wow.
ended up getting married. And like I said, the story is now we've had our challenge. I shared my testimony about what went on, but now we've been married for 50 years, and I told you that, what we had decided to do. So it was a journey, Lou. It was an uncommon journey.
I love this. Now, see, when this comes out, right? When your daughter D, I guess I know you're watching this. You gotta have your mom on and on your show, and you gotta get her to tell the whole story another way. How the way
Yeah,
what
she
Mr.
will.
Bell just say.
She will.
So stay tuned for that part too
Yeah.
on Unapologetically D. Mr. Bell, I'm gonna end this on three questions,
Okay.
and you gonna love this because you've been an amazing guest. I want to know personally how good was Sean Kemp?
Sean Kemp.
How good was he? Was he overhyped or was he really that good?
From my perspective, back in that day, when they were competing at the high level,
Mhm.
coming out of school, I think he was one of those guys that bypassed college, if I'm not mistaken,
Yes. Yeah, he went
and
right to high school.
yeah, came right into the NBA. I think he was really good. I don't think it was like too much hype. I think what you saw him do was
Mhm.
was really at an NBA elite level. I thought he was a really good player, especially playing with the glove. Um, I thought
Oh,
he was
Gary.
really good. I think he was one of the more dominant players, and I've actually went back and watched some of his old highlights and stuff like that.
He
But
can't
from a
really shoot
basketball
though.
standpoint, huh?
He can't really shoot.
He wasn't a really good outside shooter, but he get in the inside. He was pretty dominant.
I mean, to me though, if he learned a mid-range shot, he would have been good.
He would have been, well, he would have been probably, what you call, I wouldn't say he was, you know, who could I compare him with? Like some of the guys today, like who what's his name that plays for Oklahoma that won the MVP.
Oh, I know you're talking about. Yeah, I know you're talking about.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he would at that level, because that guy's really, really, really good.
Okay. All right.
Or Kawhi Leonard or those guys that have been out there and
I,
won.
I, I wouldn't put him on Kawhi Leonard's category, but
Yeah. Well, he's kind of like, well, he's getting to the latter part of his career. But from my perspective,
yeah.
and that's just from my perspective only.
Okay.
I thought he was a star, but maybe not a superstar.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
So I understand, right? While I listen to your podcast on Unapologetically D, I understand that you was a baller yourself. So in a quick version,
yeah.
do you remember the last time you played? How was that experience for you? The
I
last time.
remember
Last.
because I was playing in junior college. I didn't get to the 4-year school.
Okay.
This was prior to my fire service career.
Yeah.
But I remember I'll tell you a real quick story.
Go ahead.
So I went to this college, Bellevue Community College in Bellevue, and
Yeah.
I was there with a really good coach. You know, he was a star in his own right when he played and played at USC. Um, and he told me something, but he didn't keep his promise. He said, "Hey, Johnny, I'm going to start you this game." Not only did he not start me, I didn't even get off the bench.
Oh.
And what made him worse, he did not even say anything about it. So me, being in my teens, late teens, I'm like, I'm upset, man. I said, I'm out of here. So I transferred to Seattle Community College,
Okay.
even though I knew I had to sit out, a
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
But then I had this vengeful mindset. I can't wait till we play them again.
Wow.
And so we ended up playing them twice that year after that year, or I think it was a year and almost 2 years after that. And the first game, I lit them up. Okay, I lit them up for 30, but we lost. Okay, that
Mm.
was like and he came to me and said, "Oh, great game," and I just kind of, yeah, whatever, coach. I really, I was vengeful. I had a vengeful mindset.
Okay.
Second game we played them, I scored half that amount, but we won. And I
Okay.
was more excited about that
The
win because,
win.
like, see, I'm out to win.
Yeah.
So I was kind of happy both. I scored my career high that one game against them, and then I didn't get quite the big points, but we still won the game. So I got my revenge per se, I guess you could say, because I was trying to prove something to him, right?
Okay.
That he made a
All right.
mistake. And Lou, the only thing, the mistake that he made was not being honest with me.
Yes. I don't like a liar. I
Yeah,
don't.
that was it. That was the only reason that I left the program is because, and he didn't come and say anything to me about it. He just like, it was no big deal. And so I never forgot that.
Okay.
If I was
All
to
right.
do it all over again, knowing what I know now, I probably would have went to him or whatever. But
Like no
uh,
man to man.
yeah, yeah,
Okay. All right.
yeah. But yeah,
I got
that's what I remember.
I got one last question for you.
Yes, sir.
And in my opinion, the Seattle Seahawks should be two-time Super Bowl champion.
Mm.
Okay. So I'm gonna ask you.
Oh boy.
I'm gonna ask you.
Yeah,
I assume you was watching this game, right?
I was, sir. Let me tell you,
Okay.
I'll never forget it.
Okay. Here get a question.
Hmm.
What's the first thing that came to your mind? You're in the red zone. You're like, I don't know, 3, 4 yards away.
Yeah.
Mr. Lynch was on a hot streak,
Yes.
but they call a passing play.
Right.
And I guess you gave Brady what, his sixth ring at that time? Or fifth
Yes.
ring? Like, what
Yes.
was
Yes.
going through your mind? Because I'm not gonna lie, I was laughing. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna lie. I was like, this is a bonehead decision here. But what
Yeah.
was going through your mind on that play?
After I after I stood there frozen in time,
Mhm.
trying to figure out what just happened. I mean, I'm like, can somebody tell me what just happened?
Yep.
And we're all just like stunned.
Mhm.
And then after I came down out of that, I'm like, who called that play?
Yeah, who did call it?
Especially like just what you had just said. Now you
Yeah.
could say, well, it was the offensive coordinator, but Pete Carroll he's the head coach.
Yeah.
He's the responsible one. But
Okay.
I started thinking, I'm like, well, come on, Pete. You got probably the best power running back in the
Yep.
entire NFL. And it's
No.
proven.
Mm-mm.
If you wanted to make the pass play, I don't have a problem with that play, but I had a problem with the timing of that play.
Mhm.
When you got a second down, I remember the down, you got 3 downs to get that ball in the end zone. You got the
Mhm.
best running back in the NFL, in my opinion.
Mhm.
Why did you give it to him the first time? Why did you say, okay, we're going to try to power Lynch into the end zone? Give it to him.
Mhm.
If he didn't make it, you still got third down. Okay, maybe it's an obvious passing down, maybe not. But to call that play, and the thing about it, I don't think if everybody knew this. At least this is what I heard. The guy that intercepted knew the formation.
Oh,
He knew the formation.
well, they like to cheat over there in New England. I mean,
And he just this was Lou, they're going to lose. This is an all-out thing for them. They're going to lose this game. We're on the 2-yard line. We got the best running back in the NFL, could get 2 yards just falling over,
Mhm.
right? So it's obvious, but see, even when it's obvious, you sometimes you can't stop it. Even when you know what the play is, if the guys do their blocks and do their things, you got a power guy. There's no way that Lynch wouldn't have got in at least one of those. And now you maybe you end up with a fourth down. You still got a good chance to win this game. But I think that was, and the other thing that was the demise of that whole unit after that game. It was the
Wow. Well,
everything just fell apart after that.
Mr.
But that's my
Bell,
that's my thought, sir.
your thoughts are your whole thoughts on this conversation were very, very well. I love your knowledge. I love how way you just articulate everything. I mean, I definitely gotta have you on again in the future. This is a great conversation. Thank you so much, sir. Come on, Brothers Talk. And
Yeah.
ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you right now, if you want to hear a great story, you gotta go on Unapologetically D. I'll put it in the descriptions below. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe to that podcast. It's a very good young podcast. Also, like and subscribe to this podcast. Hit that notification button, hit that like button. What people don't realize is the more likes we have, it puts us into a different algorithm. You can get all the many views you want, but the more likes we have is unbelievable. Mr. Bell, thank you so much for gracing me with your presence today. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Lou, for having me on, and I appreciate the opportunity to come on and share with you guys.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to another episode of Brothers Talk. We will see you next time. Peace.
All right. God bless.
All
Bye-bye.
right.